Hello and welcome. Today the new or the upcoming carts for the Evercade have been announced and completely expected. They are Neogeo Arcade 4 and Activision Collection 3. I think everyone saw that coming, well except for those hoping for some big shiny new releases, new publishers and all this sort of thing, but I just don't think that'll be coming this time of year. And I think it was wise of Blaze to get a Neogeo cart out, especially with all the hype around the AES Plus and everything. And speaking of which, I haven't done a video on that because it's not something I intend to get, but I'll share my thoughts on that in a minute. And I will also do that for the home computer handheld things that Blaze are doing, because I haven't done a video on those either. Anyway, I also think it was wise to get Activision Collection 3 out of the way, because it was announced when the first Activision Collection came out that there would be 3. Getting all 3 of those out in the early part of the year makes sense, so whatever is coming towards the back end of the year, there's a few more surprises in store, rather than people thinking, well, Activision's coming, we know that's coming, and so on. And it is a collection that excites and disappoints people from different crowds and level of interest in equal measure. There are certainly a crowd of people who think the Activision collections are fantastic, are really excited for them, and there are people who are rather indifferent to them or actively have no interest in them or dislike them. I am somewhat in the middle myself. This era of gaming doesn't really excite me. When the carts get announced, I don't get really hyped for them, but I get them because I'm a full setter and I collect them all, and I generally do find games I like on them. And I'm sure Activision Collection 3 will be no different, although I am less familiar with the games on this one than the previous 2. Anyway, let's go through the game list. I'll give you my thoughts on them, such as there are, because I don't know much about them. Barnstorming is an aerial racing game where you dive through barns. There is something familiar about this game. Maybe I've played it somewhere along the line, perhaps a home computer port if there were some, but yeah, maybe it'll be okay. I again really don't know much about it. Bridge is well, it's Bridge, and honestly this is a game that I'll probably boot up once to get footage, and that will be it. If I wanted to play Bridge, I don't think it would be a simulation. I'd do it in person with other old people, or old people. Can't really call myself young. Chopper Command is one that I am passingly familiar with, and based on what many people have said, this could be the highlight of the collection. Dolphin sounds a little bit odd, especially the description that says an endangered dolphin is calling you. Learn the dolphin's sonic language, guide her through schools of seahorses, and gain magic powers from a seagull. Well, I mean, still sounds less weird than the plot of Echo the Dolphin. Honestly, I have no idea on this game, and I can say the same for the next one, which is Dragonfire, which involves dragons invading the royal court and the prince having to save the day. I know nothing about this game, although Ed from the Evercade Effect seemed to get really hyped about it, so maybe it's going to be a fun one. We also have Ice Hockey, which is, I gather, a fairly simple sports game. I wouldn't expect anything else from the 2600. Hopefully it'll be quite a fun one. Kabobba, I know nothing about. The description says Princess Bovsky is in pursuit of the magical rainbow energy, and it's up to you and your army of Bovskys to stop her. Yeah, that tells me nothing. I know nothing. Who knows? Kaboom seems you facing off against a mad bomber. Again, I know nothing about it, so maybe it'll be a pleasant surprise. Keystone Capers is one that everyone has been talking about and saying they've been wanting on these Activision collections, but I don't know it. I've never played it, so hopefully it lives up to the various bits of hype it's been getting. Laser Blast looks interesting, playing a flying saucer shooting enemies on the ground from what I can tell. Yeah, could go either way. Pressure Cooker is one that people have talked about in a very positive light, and it very much looks like a proto Overcooked. I was thinking it looked very much like that, but I couldn't think of the name of the game. But on the Evercade Discord, Sean from Blaze did say that it's basically a proto Overcooked, and well, Overcooked was quite a fun game, so yeah, maybe it's a good one. Then we have the Activision Decathlon. It's a sports game. It's going to be waggling the joystick or tapping left and right on the D-pad. Yeah, these things don't really excite me. And finally there is Thwocka, which the description says for Thwocka, music is his life, literally help him finish his symphony in this colourful Activision platformer. Yeah, I know nothing of this one, so hope it's a fun one. So overall it has fewer games than the previous Activision collections, and there are some notable absences. I know Pete from the Evercast or Empty Pixel Gaming has been very much hoping for Frostbite, but I guess maybe there's some rights issues there. But that is the third and final Activision cart. And I've no idea if that means what they're calling the Activision collections. I mean, Activision do have plenty more games under their belts, so it'll be interesting to see if we do get other collections from under the Activision banner, or Activision Blizzard. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what comes. Okay, so Neo Geo Arcade Collection 4. Now, everyone expected this, but when Blaze announced that the collections would have 8 and 13 games on them respectively, most people assumed that wouldn't include a Neo Geo collection, as they've all been 6 games so far. And the reason for this, I believe, is SNK or Neo Geo, whatever they're calling themselves these days, generally like to keep a fairly consistent price point for their games on various platforms. So why is this one different? Well, it might be they perceive some of these games to have less value and they charge less for the licensing, and well, who knows. Anyway, there is 8 games on it, and that's certainly not a bad thing. But the question is, are they any good? Are there 8 games on the collection to compensate for a lack of quality? Anyway, like with the Activision collection, I'll go through each game and share some thoughts on it. First up is 3 Count Bout, which is a wrestling game, and personally I'm not a fan of wrestling games. Any of them, I've never found one that I've particularly enjoyed. There's certainly ones that are better than others, but generally I'm not a fan of the slap them, grapple them, mash some buttons to pull some moves off and see who wins the grapple contest and things, and pin them and that. Again, it's a gameplay type that's never really done it for me. And from what I've played of it, 3 Count Bout is no different, but it doesn't seem like a bad one. Certainly some nice graphics on it, so I think it could well please people who have been crying out for wrestling games, as I know there are a few people out there who have been. And let's face it, we're not going to get a lot of the classic wrestling games because of, licenses of real people and things. Next up is Baseball Stars 2, and it's the only game of this collection I haven't played. It looks pretty good, and it's a baseball game, which is a sport I'm not really into, not being American, so I'm sure it's fine, but I can't comment, and it probably won't be my cup of tea. Blazing Star is the first game that was previously included on the Neo Geo Super Pocket, and it's one that I've been hoping would come to a cartridge. So this is a welcome inclusion. It is a good shoot 'em up with some really nice pre-rendered style graphics, and I think a pretty steep difficulty later on in the game. I wouldn't call it my favourite horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up, but it's a decent one with some pretty crazy bosses later on in the game. It's going to be good to play it on a big screen, probably, because I have played it through on the Super Pocket, but that tiny screen you don't get to really enjoy the nuances of the graphics. Also from the lineup of the Neo Geo Super Pocket, we have Fatal Fury Special. It's a classic fighting game, and I like it well enough. I don't like it as much as Garou Mark of the Wolves or King of the Fighters, but it's certainly better than Art of Fighting 2. So having another solid fighting game, and I expect we'll get plenty more fighting games on these Neo Geo collections, yeah, it's a welcome addition, and I think will be more enjoyable as we can now play it in 2-player mode, unlike on the Super Pocket. Next up is King of the Monsters, which is a fighting wrestling game where you fight as kaiju through over a city, destroying buildings and what have you. Again, as someone who's not a fan of wrestling games, it's not quite my jam, and I do believe it is generally considered to be one of the weaker early Neo Geo games from the initial launch lineup they had, but it still has a charm to it. And again, if you're a fan of wrestling games, this is going to be a good cart for you with 2 of them on it. Okay, so now we're on to Metal Slug 4, and for many people who might be thinking, cool, more Metal Slug, and it is more Metal Slug, there's no getting away from that, but there is quite a steep drop in quality. Now, it's still a good game, the core mechanics are there, it still has nice graphics. But aside from introducing 2 new playable characters, the game doesn't really offer anything new, and it generally feels like Metal Slug by numbers, with a lot of reuse of assets, a bit of a lack of polish, and uninspired level design. So while still a pretty decent run and gun, as far as Metal Slug games go, it's pretty poor. So moving on to Robo Army, this is a belt scrolling beat 'em up, where you control a cybernetic warrior fighting lots of robots. From what I've played of it, it's a fairly straightforward beat 'em up with some of the usual weapon pickups, special moves, and you can transform into vehicles and other things. All in all, it seems like a pretty good beat 'em up, not a classic of the genre, but a decent enough entry. And finally we have King of the Fighters 2002, and from what I've played of the King of the Fighters games, they're all good, and this one seems no different, as in it still seems like a very good game. There are obvious differences from the others I've played, but it's still a decent fighting game nonetheless, and how it compares to the others I'll just have to judge when the cart comes out and I've put a decent amount of time into it. So I think overall the cart is going to stack up very well against the other Neo Geo collections, and due to the extra games and the variety it offers, it might be a good starting point for people who haven't picked up any of the other Neo Geo collections. Anyway, so that's the 2 carts revealed, and I think they're pretty strong carts. even if what they are is entirely predictable. I've seen some discussion about how revealing these carts or waiting an extra 2 weeks to reveal them was a bit pointless. But I think it's a good thing because it allowed the previous carts that have just come out 2 weeks ago a bit of time to breathe before people start talking about the next thing. And despite the releases being quite predictable, as in what carts they are, and there being a bit of a divided opinion on level of interest on Activision 3, I think they're rock solid mid-year releases for the Evercade. Anyway, I threatened earlier on to talk about the AES Plus and the home computer handhelds. So I'll start with the AES Plus, and I said it's not a device I'm going to get, but it is a cool looking device, and if it lives up to what it promises, as in it actually represents and I wouldn't say emulates, but recreates the Neogeo experience with bells and whistles, then for collectors of the original hardware or avid Neogeo fans, it's going to be a great device. But I happily get my Neogeo fix from the Evercade. I love the games, but I don't really want to be spending £90 on a single cartridge, or 400 plus on original cartridges, or the indie games developed for the Neogeo. I also don't want more devices cluttering up my flat. I don't have a huge amount of room. One of the reasons I'm into the Evercade is it avoids me having to have lots of MIDI devices and things like that, and still fills that sort of collector itch in me. So as I said, potentially a very good device for the right person. That might not be me, but I'm happy that the Neogeo fans out there who would be buying this and slapping down £1,000 to get the bundle, I'm happy they're going to get something that's going to excite them. But my reservation with it, which I can't really say is that valid, is I have no intention of buying it. But while it sounds good on paper, what if the device doesn't actually live up to the promise? What if the recreation of the original hardware ends up somewhere more in the quality of some of these AtGames Mega Drives from back in the day? Now, I'm sure that won't be the case, but until it is in the hands of reviewers and people have tried it out, you can't really say for sure. But either way, I really don't see it as competition for the Evercade. It's just a different side of the retro gaming world, or that sort of thing. And the home computer handhelds, these are an interesting one. I know some people feel they're rather pointless as they don't have keyboards built in, and many of the home computer games would make use of them, but the game selections do seem pretty focused on games that wouldn't need a keyboard anyway. As for them being pointless, I mean, if you have the C64 Mini or the Maxi or the Spectrum from Retro Games, they might seem a little bit redundant, but the whole point is they're handheld. Again, they're very much for a different side of the retro gaming niche, and despite being released by Blaze under the Hyper Megatech label or brand, whatever you want to call it, they aren't competition to Evercade. I know there's been some confusion there, but these are essentially Retro Games products just delivered through Blaze, and they are tempting. I mean, for me personally, I've been meaning to pick up the Spectrum, I haven't yet, and I might get one of these instead, but maybe I should just get the Spectrum. I'm a little bit undecided on that one. My logic for why I might get this over the Spectrum is if I hook up the Spectrum to my monitor on my PC and run it through there, well, why not just emulate through my PC? If I put it in my living room, yes, it's a small device and I could use it, but generally in my living room I'll be sat on my sofa and playing with a controller on a device that's under the telly. I'm not likely to, again, it's something to sit better under a desk rather than like in a living room. So maybe getting a handheld would be the way to do it. And if I do want to do anything involving a keyboard or any programming on it or anything like that, then I could just hook up a keyboard to it on the desk. I'm still mulling over. I'm not rushing out to pre-order it, but it is under consideration. As for the games on the two devices, I think they both have a pretty good selection, and having the SD slots, you can add more games easily enough. The reason I haven't been so interested in the C64 one is because I do get enough of my C64 nostalgia from the Evercade collections, but there is less Evercade support for the Spectrum, at least as yet. And many of the Spectrum games I would like to play again are probably fairly unlikely to make it onto an Evercade cartridge due to the licenses being scattered to the winds and this, that and the other. So yeah, I think they're potentially good devices for the right people. I don't think they're going to go like gangbusters, and I also don't see them as competition for the Evercade any more than the C64 Mini was, or the Spectrum was, or the A1200. Speaking of the A1200, I really do hope they do an Amiga Mini like this. That would be an insta-buy for me. But of course, all of this comes down to there are a lot of devices coming out, not just from Evercade, or Blaze rather, but from other places, and with times being as they are, we very much have to pick and choose what we buy. I mean, sure, some people can just buy whatever and have plenty of room and funds to get them. I'm not in that boat, I do have to pick and choose. But all this hardware is fine. I mean, Blaze are releasing quite a lot this year, and the important thing to remember is you don't have to have it all. Don't let the FOMO get you. Buy what is going to suit your gaming needs or wants, and let other people enjoy the rest. Anyway, I think that's quite enough for this video, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.